You are in a board meeting or you are in a meeting. You are on time. You are on time. And Yusuf, we have an agreement, everybody on time. Yusuf comes in late. Let's say 5 minutes late. Okay? Nobody said anything. Here's what happened. Okay? And so this is a stamp. This is stamp, 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 stamp. So nobody says anything. Problem. Next week, we had a meeting. Muhammad Wajhi showed up late. Nobody said anything. Okay. Keep going. No problem. Keep going. Keep going. Now, what happened is every time that someone is late, subconsciously, each one of them is collecting a stamp, is putting a stamp in that book. Wajhi, late. Let's say Ahmed is always on time. Okay, Ahmed is on time. So Muhammad Wajhi showed up late. He put Ahmed put a stamp here. Kazim showed up late. Then Ahmed put a stamp here. Okay, so one day Ahmed is having a bad day. Okay, you're starting the day on the wrong foot. Something's going on at home. He's just not feeling good. Just having one of those days, which we all do. Okay, he said, you know what? Muhammad Wajhi showed up late. Nobody said anything. Kazim showed up late. Nobody said anything. You know, I'm just going to show up whenever I want to. And they will cash out on that stamp book of theirs because they filled up the whole book. Everybody understand, yes? So now they will cash out on that stamp book. So that's why the code of honor is so important when we put it in place, that you want to be able to enforce it and you want to be able to live by it, because you don't want people to collecting stamps, because at some point they're going to be cashing out on that stamp and then there's no point of doing it. I'd rather you not put any rules in place if you don't enforce them. I mean, look at these rules. Alhamdulillah, for the past, like in the first 3 days, everybody was showing up on time, everybody's engaged. And when I notice someone is like showing up late, I point it out. Right? If someone is on the phone, whenever I see you, I point it out. Now, obviously, I don't want to do this. And the point of the code of honor is not the manager will point that out. The point is that you will point that out to yourself. That's what I'm able to teach you and give you the authority, and not authority, give you the power to do that, to call each other out in a way that is going to empower each other, not, making each other fall, look down at each other. That's not the point. Okay? So, everybody understand what the stamp rule is, the stamp book rule? Okay? Okay. So that is why it's important to create a code of honor. Now, when you put rules, people will, the minute that you have rules, okay, especially, in the Middle East, we as Middle Easterns, okay, we want to test these boundaries. We want to test them. For example, when I first came to America, I didn't want to put seatbelt on. I'm not used to it. In Lebanon, I don't put seatbelt on. Okay. So I was like, you know what? Nobody's going to see it. It's okay. I'm just going to put seatbelt on. Okay. So I want to test these boundaries until I got a 500 fat ticket. And then I stopped. I stopped putting seatbelt on. Okay. So people will test the boundaries. When you have the code of honor, people were going to test it naturally. So it's important to make sure that to reinforce it. And is that going to fix the culture within like right away? No, it's going to get worse for a little bit, but then it's going to get better. Then it's going to get better. We're talking about the long term here, a culture. You're building a culture. You're helping in building the culture, okay, in the organization, so that you feel good working in this organization. You feel good working with your team. You have a code of honor. You can communicate with your manager. The manager is feeling good about your communication style, and your team as well, and the whole company as a whole. Okay. So I think I covered why it's so important. One more thing, attitude of, so talent, we're talking about talent. People are talented. Talented people, for the most, sometimes talented people, unfortunately, they're the one they want to test these boundaries the most. Okay. Like, for example, you notice that on the field, if you play soccer, the person who scores a lot of goals, they come late, right? They show up whenever they want to, and you find out the coach, if the coach is weak, they're like, oh, no problem. He scores goals for us, so he give him a private or a special treatment. That's the worst thing you can do, okay? You might as well lose a talent to gain a team. The attitude you want to be looking for is coachability. Is someone is willing to take the coaching and be willing to learn, okay? No talent, preparation beats talent all day long. I can bet on Hussein Khayyat if he would, implement the system, because he's coachable, and be able to go through, buy the things that I'm asking you to do, the lighting, all that stuff, set the pre-verbal agreement. I can bet all day long on someone who's coachable rather than on someone who's talented, because talent, it goes up and down, okay, up and down. If they're feeling good about themselves, they're on top of the world. If they're not feeling so good, they're like, they're moody, they're not consistent, so that's why the code of honor, it just helps you to have consistency in your results and increase your productivity. Everybody understand? Yes? Nod your head if you do. Now nod your head if that makes sense. Make sense? Okay? All right, good. The code of honor is basically based on two things. How many things, please?
Two things.
Two things, okay? One, the values of the organization. Values of the organization. And number two are the breakdowns. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's start with values. When wherever you're living, for the most part in countries, we have laws, law of the land, okay? So if you speed, what value you would be breaking if you go like 150 on the freeway, or like go crazy on the streets? What value would you be breaking?
Traffic law.
Safety. Yeah. Absolutely. Safety, right? Exactly. So the code of honor, okay, is created to protect the values of the organization, okay? If you're doing it for the organization, and that's what we're doing here. But also I'm going to teach you how to do it for yourself as well. So you have your own values as well, okay? So the code of honor, okay? You want to protect the value. You want to have values. So you have your own values. Values, core values, yeah, like integrity, like responsibility, like communication, right? So the values that you hold. Family, for example, is a value. Love is value, right? So values. Number two, you want to have a rule that protects that value. Okay? Okay? So values, rules, okay? And number three would be consequences. And the consequence can be positive, meaning reward positive behavior, or it could be constructive. Notice I didn't say negative, could be constructive. When they break the rule, they would need to have a penalty. Okay, I should put penalty instead of consequence, but it's like penalty. Like for example, me not putting my seatbelt on, I got a ticket. How many of you have kids? Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? So, you got to sleep by 9 o'clock. If there's no consequence, you can't watch Frozen tomorrow. You won't play with your Xbox. Okay, I'll go to sleep. Okay, same thing. Okay, it builds them up. It teaches them discipline. Okay, the same thing here we're talking about. So, code of honor is you want to start with a value, you want to have a rule, and then you want to put a consequence. So you're going to get to do this today. You're going to walk away by the end of this training today. You're going to have a list of 8 rules, and then I'm going to suggest 2 rules for you in case that you don't have these rules that I'm looking for. Okay, we'll go for 10. We'll go for 10. More than 10, it becomes too much. You can't remember them. Less than 10, it's not tight. When I'm saying tight, as an engineer, if you know, so before they assemble a car, the parts they freeze them. Why do they freeze the parts?
Contract the material.
Exactly, contract the material. Who said that?
Mateen.
Mateen, absolutely. Give Mateen a big round of applause. That's right. It contracts the material, and when you assemble that, right, and then it will like fit tight with everything else. The same thing here. If you have enough rules, then the company and the organization and the communication, it will run tight with each other. Okay, everything will run tight. If you just only have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 rules, then it's going to be loose. So you don't want to be loose. That's what I found from experience and experience of mentors and teachers that I worked with and companies that I've trained, is around 10 rules is more than enough. And these 10 rules is enough to put them on the wall, in your organization, in your card, right? I show you mine. I have one in my wallet. I'll show you, okay? I'll give you an example of that, okay? So that is one piece of the code of honor. Remember we talked about values, and what's the second one? 2 words. Breakdowns. What does that mean, breakdown? So breakdown means it's more of like things go wrong. So things that go wrong are breakdowns. For example, breakdown would be like people showing up late. That is a breakdown. People not responding on an email right away. That's a breakdown. Breakdown is when someone is not talking to someone else, like there's withholding information. That's a breakdown. Someone not sharing their work on the cloud, that would be a breakdown, because now we don't know what Samir is working on. We need to have our work shared on the cloud so that everybody can see what's happening. That would be a breakdown. Okay, so breakdown is something that's frustrating. It's a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck that is stopping you from moving forward effectively, efficiently, as a high performance team. Okay, that's what we're doing here. So if you notice, let's say we're talking about who's your favorite team. What was it? Real playing today?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday?
They played yesterday and they won 3-0.
Okay. So who's your favorite player?
Benzema.
Okay.
Benzema now,
Right.
yes.
So let me ask you this. So when the team shows up, when someone from the team comes to the training, let's say, late, who do you think points that out? Who do you think point that out for the teammate? Someone shows up late in the team, in a high performance team like Real, let's say.
The coach.
The coach.
I invite you to consider it's not. It's a team. It's a team that is call that person out first. That's what high performance team do. Traditional leadership is you have the boss, the hierarchy, and then they tell them, they're holding them accountable. It's a leadership from top to down. New leadership, okay, innovative leadership. If you notice that, with Google, with Apple, with these companies, with IKEA, for example, you notice it's from bottom up. Leadership is from bottom up, okay? So because in order for you to get the most accountability, then it's important the team to hold each other accountable. And that's what we're helping to create, so that the manager doesn't have to micromanage you, and instead they can think of helping you grow. Because the job of a manager is not to manage staff and manage tasks. It's to help people grow. It's to coach. Managers are coaches. Managers are leaders. They're not task babysitters. They're not task managers. They are people coaches. So that is what I'm inviting you to start changing the way you think about certain things, right? So that's why we're creating this code of honor, so that you can hold each other accountable. You're not waiting for the manager to hold you accountable. Okay? So breakdowns. So so we talked about 2 things. We talked about the values, and we talked about breakdowns. Okay. So the values are very important. Why? Because they are the boundaries. Like, in a soccer game, for example, the boundaries of the field. These are the values that we can play within these boundaries. We can't go take the ball outside. Now it's out. You have to play out. So that's why you only can play within these boundaries. That's where the values are. It's the boundaries where we play in. Okay, we're playing that game within. Okay, that's why it's so important to understand these values. Okay.